This is the European Contact Lecture. As demonstrated by your readings in Module 2, the Americas were certainly not desolate and uninhabited prior to the arrival of Europeans. A wealth of peoples and their civilizations populated the Americas from Alaska to the tip of South America. The standard narrative of Europeans bringing civilization to the New World is entrenched within our society, but it could not be further from the truth. The arrival of Europeans was the beginning of a new era for the American continents, and the catalyst for a momentous upheaval to all those that lived there. Today we will be discussing the Age of Discovery, a period that saw the development of exploratory efforts by many European nations. These nations and their efforts, fueled by complex motivations, would colonize the Americas and trigger an unstoppable movement of people, ideas, and goods around the world. When discussing the Age of Discovery and European exploration, one must first look at its origins. Why did Europeans begin looking abroad? What new advancements and ideologies shifted their motivations? The answer to this lies within the Renaissance, a period known for its ideological revolution and technological innovations. The Renaissance ignited a passion for understanding the unknown. That is especially true of those looking to explore their world. New thoughts concerning the shape of the world and the position of nations allowed men to look outward and wonder. Technology played a huge role in spurring on exploration. Prior to the Renaissance, all European naval navigations was based upon remaining within view of land in order to achieve one's objectives. There was no method of navigating across open water. That changed with the advent of technologies like the magnetic compass and techniques like celestial navigation. With new tools and understanding, Europeans were able to reach out and leave the site of their continent in search of the unknown. The Portuguese led the charge in explorations, as they were the first European nation to truly explore Africa. In the 1400s, the Portuguese slowly but surely made their way down the African coast and set up numerous trading posts along the way. Aiding them in this was the development of a new type of ship, the caravel, a smaller ship that could sail both into and with the wind. It allowed for much faster and more efficient travel. In 1488, the Portuguese reached and rounded the Cape of Good Hope. Africa finally came to an end, and Europeans discovered that an entirely new ocean existed. Thoughts of traveling to the Far East were now possible, which brings us to motivation. Exploration is an expensive and extremely risky venture. Why would nations spend money and manpower on these expeditions? For profit, that's why. European nations were desperate to tap into foreign markets to balance out lagging trade deficits created through long, drawn-out land routes for foreign goods. Nations like Spain, Portugal, and others wanted to create their own trade networks to profit off of foreign markets. In tandem, Europeans wanted to spread their religion. Christianity was always a driving factor in exploration, more predominantly within Catholic nations like Spain. But every nation used religion as a justification for exploratory efforts. Spain sits as a wonderful example as they spread across the Atlantic for gold, God, and glory. Following Columbus's infamous voyage in 1492, the Americas began to rapidly open up to European exploration and settlement. Leading the charge in South and Central America was Spain. The Spanish conquistadors interacted with the most advanced native civilizations in the Americas, in the Incas and the Aztecs. Following the discovery of gold, the Spanish go wild in their search for more. These two ancient and advanced civilizations are destroyed by Spanish greed for gold. Men like Hernan Cortez don't care for or respect the native population and culture, and instead trick the natives into handing over all of their riches. Cities are destroyed, and thousands of natives are murdered in the name of gold. Part of the disrespect lies in the fact that the natives have their own religion instead of being Catholic, which is blasphemous to the Spaniards. Catholic missions are erected in their place, and the Spanish began to settle and colonize much of the continent of South America, all the way up into the North American Southwest. North America endures a different story than the South. There is no gold discovered along the coasts of North America. Two different nations will become the main players in the North, France and Great Britain. These two nations are slightly late to the exploration business. A number of famous explorers launched expeditions in search of a westward passage to Asia. Henry Hudson of England was one of the most prominent. As he was looking for a northern route across the Atlantic to India and the Asian markets, he discovered the Hudson Bay and the easiest route into the interior of North America. French explorer Jacques Cartier dubbed the land Canada in one of his explorations into the interior. France would make numerous attempts to settle this new land, but failed initially due to the harsh climates. Quebec became the first primary settlement of New France in 1608 and would serve as a base for further colonization. New France operated differently from all of the other colonial empires in the Americas, as it was purely economic in nature. The French explorers immediately fostered relationships with the surrounding natives and began taking part in fur trapping. This would become a ridiculously lucrative commodity in Europe, as fur fashion was highly sought after by European elites. The French colonial network was designed around the fur trade. Fostering a good relationship with their native neighbors, the French utilized their skills and expertise to multiply their fur takes. New France would develop along this business model. Therefore, there were few large settlements and few families. New France is made up of mainly single men looking to strike it rich in the fur trade. Great Britain took on a completely different approach when it came to the North American colonies. Settling successfully first at Jamestown in 1607, the English wanted to create large settlements designed to create profit and new markets for English goods. An in-depth look into Jamestown and the English colonies will follow in the next module. In conclusion, the arrival of Europeans to the New World did not bring civilization to a dark and savage world. It instead brought European greed, religion, and competition. The native population stood no chance against European technology, and more important, their diseases. Native civilization crumbled in the face of European germs and guns. The flow of goods, ideas, germs, and people across the Atlantic created what we call the Columbian Exchange. This was an exchange of everything: social and cultural norms and ideas, biological introduction of disease, plants, animals, and a massive movement of people into the American continents. The process started by Columbus gained massive momentum and could not be stopped. What was really beginning to unfold were the early steps of globalization.